My name is David Johnson, and I'm a 45-year-old high school teacher living in Houston, Texas. I've been married to my wife, Jessica, for the past 20 years. We met in college at the University of Texas, where I was studying to become a history teacher, and she was pursuing a degree in psychology. After graduation, we got married and settled down in Houston, where I found a job at a local high school, and Jessica started working as a counselor at a private practice. For the first 15 years of our marriage, things were great. We had a comfortable life, a nice house in the suburbs, and 2 wonderful kids, a son named Ethan and a daughter named Olivia. Jessica and I had a strong relationship, and we rarely fought. We made time for date nights every week and took family vacations every summer. But around 5 years ago, Jessica started to change. She became distant and seemed uninterested in spending time with me and the kids. At first I thought it was just a phase, and that she was going through something at work. But as time went on, her behavior became more and more suspicious. She started working late nights at the office, claiming that she had a lot of paperwork to catch up on. She would come home well past midnight, exhausted and irritable. On the weekends, she would often disappear for hours at a time, saying that she needed to run errands or meet with clients. But something about her explanations didn't add up. I tried to talk to her about it, but she always brushed me off, telling me that I was being paranoid and that everything was fine. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I started to notice little things, like how she always kept her phone face down when she was around me, and how she would quickly end calls when I walked into the room. One evening, while Jessica was in the shower, I couldn't resist the temptation to look through her phone. I know it was wrong, but I had to know the truth. What I found made my heart sink. There were dozens of text messages between Jessica and a man named Mark, who I didn't recognize. The messages were flirty and suggestive, and it was clear that they were more than just friends. I confronted Jessica about it that night, and she broke down in tears. She admitted that she had been having an affair with Mark, a colleague at her practice, for the past 6 months. She said that she felt trapped in our marriage and that Mark made her feel alive again. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved and trusted for so many years could betray me like this. I didn't know what to do. I was heartbroken and angry, but I still loved Jessica and couldn't imagine my life without her. We decided to try couples therapy to see if we could work through our issues. But after a few sessions, it became clear that Jessica wasn't fully committed to repairing our relationship. She continued to see Mark behind my back, and our fights became more and more frequent. That's when I turned to my best friend Tom for support. Tom had been my best man at my wedding and had always been there for me through thick and thin. When I told him about Jessica's affair, he was almost as angry as I was. He couldn't believe that Jessica could do something like this to me and our family. Tom and I started meeting up regularly to talk and have a few beers. He listened patiently as I vented my frustrations and offered advice when he could. He even helped me gather evidence of Jessica's affair, taking pictures of her and Mark together when he spotted them out in public. Armed with this evidence, I confronted Jessica again and gave her an ultimatum. Either she ended the affair and committed to our marriage, or we were getting a divorce. She chose divorce. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. The next few months were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and custody battles. Jessica moved out of our house and into an apartment with Mark. I was left to pick up the pieces and try to explain to our kids why their mother wasn't around anymore. It was a tough time, but Tom and my other friends helped me through it. They would come over to watch the kids so I could have some time to myself, and they would invite me out for drinks and guys' nights to take my mind off things. I don't know how I would have survived those dark days without their support. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I threw myself into my work and my kids, determined to be the best father I could be. I started going to therapy on my own to work through my anger and trust issues, and eventually I even started dating again. It's been 3 years since the divorce was finalized, and I'm in a much better place now. My kids are thriving, and I've found love again with a wonderful woman named Sarah. She's kind, honest, and incredibly supportive. Everything that Jessica wasn't in the end. Looking back, I wish I had trusted my instincts sooner and not let Jessica gaslight me into believing I was crazy. I've learned the hard way that a partner who loves and respects you will never make you doubt your own perceptions. If something feels off in your relationship, don't ignore it like I did. But I've also learned that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. With the support of good friends and a lot of hard work, you can get through anything. Divorce is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary to find your own happiness. To anyone going through a similar situation, my advice is this: trust your gut, lean on your loved ones, and don't be afraid to ask for help. It won't be easy, but you will get through this. And on the other side, a better life is waiting for you. As I continued to navigate life after divorce, I found myself reflecting more and more on the signs I had missed in my marriage to Jessica. Looking back, there were so many red flags that I had ignored or explained away. The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls, the sudden disinterest in our family. It was all right there in front of me, but I couldn't see it. I think part of the reason I missed these signs was because I trusted Jessica so completely. We'd been together for over 2 decades, and I couldn't imagine her betraying me like that. I had put her on a pedestal, convinced that she was the perfect wife and mother. But the truth is, no one is perfect, and even the people we love most are capable of hurting us. Another factor was my own denial. When Jessica started pulling away from me and the kids, I didn't want to believe that anything was wrong. I made excuses for her behavior, telling myself that she was just stressed from work or going through a midlife crisis. I didn't want to confront the reality that my marriage was crumbling. But perhaps the biggest reason I missed the signs was because Jessica was so good at hiding them. She was careful to delete her text messages and clear her browser history. She had a whole separate email account that I didn't know about, and when I did confront her about her distant behavior, she was quick to turn the blame back on me, making me feel like I was the one with the problem. This kind of gaslighting is all too common in relationships where one partner is being unfaithful. They make you doubt your own instincts and perceptions, convincing you that you're being paranoid or overreacting. It's a form of emotional manipulation that can be incredibly damaging. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself to trust my gut more. If something feels off in your relationship, there's probably a reason for it. Don't ignore those nagging doubts or brush off your partner's suspicious behavior. Confront them about it, even if it's uncomfortable. It's better to know the truth than to live in denial. I would also tell myself to rely more on my support system. When I first found out about Jessica's affair, I was too ashamed and embarrassed to tell anyone about it. I tried to deal with it all on my own, which only made things harder. It wasn't until I opened up to Tom and my other friends that I realized how much I needed their support. Leaning on loved ones is crucial when you're going through something as painful as infidelity and divorce. You need people who will listen to you, validate your feelings, and remind you of your worth. You need people who will help you with practical things like childcare and legal advice. And you need people who will be there for you on the hard days when you feel like giving up. Another thing I've learned is the importance of self-care. When you're in the midst of a divorce, it's easy to let your own needs fall by the wayside. You're so focused on your kids, your job, and the legal proceedings that you forget to take care of yourself. But if you don't prioritize your own well-being, you'll quickly burn out. For me, self-care looked like a lot of different things. It was going for long runs to clear my head, even when I didn't feel like it. It was saying no to social invitations when I needed a night in to recharge. It was indulging in my favorite comfort foods and binge-watching my favorite shows. And it was seeking out therapy to help me process my emotions in a healthy way. Divorce is a trauma, and like any trauma, it takes time to heal from. You have to be patient with yourself and allow yourself to feel all the messy, complicated emotions that come with it. Some days will be harder than others. Some days, the grief will hit you out of nowhere and knock the wind out of you. But little by little, it does get easier. One of the things that helped me move forward was focusing on my kids. Even on the hardest days, they were my reason to keep going. I knew that I had to be strong for them and show them that we could still be a family, even if it looked different than before. I made a point of being honest with them about the divorce in an age-appropriate way. I didn't try to hide the truth or make excuses for their mother's behavior, but I also didn't speak badly of her in front of them. I wanted them to be able to have a relationship with her, even if I couldn't. Over time, my kids and I settled into a new normal. We created new routines and traditions, like Friday movie nights and Sunday morning pancake breakfasts. We talked openly about our feelings and leaned on each other for support. And slowly but surely, we started to heal. Of course, there were still plenty of challenges along the way. Co-parenting with Jessica was never easy, especially in the beginning. We had to learn how to communicate and compromise in a way that put our kids' needs first. There were times when I wanted to lash out at her or badmouth her to anyone who would listen, but I knew that would only make things harder for everyone in the long run. Instead, I tried to focus on the future and the new life I was building for myself. I started saying yes to invitations from friends and putting myself out there more. I took up new hobbies like photography and cooking, and when I met Sarah, I was open to the possibility of love again. Dating after divorce was intimidating at first. I had been out of the game for so long, and my self-esteem had taken a hit after Jessica's betrayal. But Sarah was patient and understanding. She'd been through a divorce herself, so she knew what I was going through. We took things slow and built a foundation of friendship and trust before anything else. Now, 3 years later, I can honestly say that I'm happier than I've ever been. My relationship with Sarah is built on honesty, communication, and mutual respect. All the things that were missing in my marriage to Jessica. We're talking about getting married someday, but there's no rush. We're just enjoying building a life together and blending our families. Looking back on everything I've been through, I'm proud of how far I've come. Divorce was the hardest thing I've ever experienced, but it was also a catalyst for so much personal growth and change. It forced me to confront my own shortcomings and work on becoming a better version of myself. It taught me the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for myself. And it showed me that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. To anyone who is going through a divorce or dealing with infidelity, I want you to know that you are not alone. What you are feeling is valid, and it's okay to not be okay. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether it's from friends, family, or a professional. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and remind you of your worth. And most importantly, don't give up on yourself. You are stronger than you know, and you will get through this. It won't happen overnight, and there will be setbacks along the way. But one day, you'll look back on this chapter of your life and see how far you've come. You'll be proud of the person you've become and the life you've built for yourself. Divorce is not the end of your story. It's simply the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. Embrace the change, even when it's scary. Trust that better things are on the horizon. And never ever settle for less than the love and respect you deserve. But over time, I realized that holding on to that guilt was only holding me back. It was preventing me from fully healing and moving forward. I had to learn to forgive myself for my own mistakes and shortcomings. I had to accept that I did the best I could with the information I had at the time. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning what Jessica did or forgetting the pain she caused. It simply means letting go of the anger and resentment that was poisoning my own heart. It means acknowledging that we are all flawed human beings capable of making mistakes. And it means choosing to focus on the present and the future rather than dwelling on the past. Of course, forgiveness is easier said than done. There were times when I would see Jessica out with Mark and feel that old familiar rage bubbling up inside me. There were times when I would lie awake at night, replaying every moment of our marriage and wondering what I could have done differently. But whenever those thoughts and emotions threatened to overwhelm me, I would turn to my support system. I would call up Tom or one of my other friends and talk it out. I would journal about my feelings or go for a long run to clear my head. And I would remind myself of how far I had come and how much I had to be grateful for. One of the things I'm most grateful for is the way my relationship with my kids has grown and deepened since the divorce. I've always been a hands-on dad, but being a single parent forced me to step up in new ways. I had to learn how to braid Olivia's hair and pack Ethan's lunches. I had to navigate the ups and downs of teenage emotions and help with homework I barely understood. But through it all, my kids and I grew closer than ever. We learned to rely on each other and communicate openly about our feelings. We created our own inside jokes and traditions, and we discovered a resilience and strength within ourselves that we never knew we had. I remember one particularly tough night, about a year after the divorce. Olivia had gotten into a fight with her best friend at school, and Ethan was struggling with a bully in his class. They were both in tears, and I felt completely overwhelmed and out of my depth. But instead of trying to fix everything on my own, I simply sat with them and listened. I held them while they cried and validated their feelings. And then, we brainstormed solutions together. We came up with a plan for Olivia to talk to her friend and apologize. We role-played what Ethan could say to stand up to his bully. And we reminded each other that no matter what challenges we faced, we would face them together. That night, as I tucked my kids into bed and kissed them goodnight, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I realized that even though our family looked different than it used to, it was still a family. We were still bound by love and loyalty and a shared history. And we were stronger and more resilient because of everything we had been through. As I've continued on this journey of healing and growth, I've also learned the importance of setting boundaries. After the divorce, I had to learn how to say no to Jessica when she tried to push my buttons or manipulate me. I had to learn how to stand up for myself and my kids, even when it was uncomfortable. I've also had to set boundaries in my new relationship with Sarah. We've had to communicate openly about our expectations and needs, and make sure that we're on the same page. We've had to navigate the challenges of blending our families and creating a new dynamic that works for everyone. Setting boundaries isn't always easy, but it's necessary for any healthy relationship. It's about knowing your own worth and being willing to advocate for yourself. It's about communicating your needs clearly and respectfully, and being open to compromise. And it's about creating a safe and trusting space where both partners can be vulnerable and authentic. I also hope that by sharing my story, I can help others who are going through similar struggles. I know how isolating and overwhelming it can feel to go through a divorce, especially when infidelity is involved. I know the shame and self-doubt that can creep in, making you question your own worth and judgment. But I also know that there is life on the other side of that pain. There is hope and healing, and the possibility of a brighter future. It won't happen overnight, and it won't be easy. But with time, support, and a willingness to do the hard work, anyone can rebuild their life and find happiness again. So to anyone who is reading this and struggling with their own pain, I want to offer you some encouragement. You are not alone, and you are not broken. Your pain is valid, and your healing is possible. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether it's from friends, family, or a professional. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and remind you of your worth. Take things one day at a time and be patient with yourself. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Celebrate the small victories and the moments of joy, no matter how fleeting they may seem. And never, ever give up on yourself or your dreams. Remember, divorce is not a failure. It's a brave choice to prioritize your own well-being and the well-being of your children. It's a chance to start fresh and build a life that aligns with your values and brings you fulfillment. And it's an opportunity to grow and learn and become the best version of yourself. As I look back on my own journey, I'm filled with gratitude for all the lessons I've learned and the person I've become. I'm grateful for my kids, who have been my rock and my reason for pushing forward. I'm grateful for my friends, who have been my sounding board and my support system. And I'm grateful for Sarah, who has shown me that love and trust are possible again. I'm also grateful for the challenges I've faced, because they have made me stronger and more resilient. They have taught me the power of forgiveness, the importance of boundaries, and the beauty of vulnerability. They have shown me that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of hope. So whatever challenges you may be facing in your own life, know that you have the strength and the courage to overcome them. Know that you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. And know that your story is far from over. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. Keep reaching out for support and surrounding yourself with people who believe in you. And keep holding on to hope, even in the face of fear and doubt. Because one day, you will look back on this chapter of your life with pride and gratitude. You will see how far you've come and how much you've grown. And you will know that every struggle and every setback was worth it, because it led you to the person you were always meant to be. That's the power of resilience, forgiveness, and hope. That's the beauty of the human spirit. And that's the message I want to leave you with today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope that it has brought you some comfort, guidance, or inspiration in your own journey.